And there are no bigger tests in the last 40 years. In all of these three tests of facts, China's economic policies have been more successful than the economic policies put forward in the West. And this is why when I say that China's economic ideas are the most advanced in the world, it's not to be polite. It's proved by the facts. And I find it quite ridiculous that some people in China write that China should be copying the West when the West has been less successful than China during the last 40 years. This is really stupid. But I was also specifically asked by the organisers to speak about some of my personal experiences with China. So if you don't mind, I will give you a few personal experiences with, and you'll find out from this what a surprise it was to find myself finishing up in China, because I never planned it. Okay, so first, how did I get into contact with China? Well, I think, like most Westerners, my first contact with China was through food. Because as everybody knows, China's most successful export to the entire world is food. Every single country in the world likes Chinese food. Now, you must understand that when I was young, and I was born in 1947, I don't want to hide anything, Britain ate only British food. To eat foreign food was considered very strange. So when I was about 15 with my girlfriend and my wife, we discovered Chinese food and ate super sweet and sour chicken. We thought we were so sophisticated and clever. We were super sophisticated people. Now we have a problem because, you see, she's my wife now. We've changed a little bit in the photographs, right? Okay. So 46 years later, we come to China. The problem is now we can't eat Chinese food in London because we found out the Chinese food we ate in London, now we come to China, is not really proper Chinese food. So this is the problem. Although it's true, there now begin to be some proper Chinese restaurants opening up in London, because you understand, most of the Chinese community in London originally came from Hong Kong 40 years ago. So they gradually adapted their food to Britain. Now my wife and I like to come very much on holidays in China. We have really good Chinese food here. My first intellectual contact with China wasn't through economics, it was through poetry. I have a great love of poetry. Unfortunately, I cannot read it in the original Chinese, but even in translation, when I read at university Chinese poetry, I was completely stunned by this. And in fact, one of my two favourite poems in any language is by Li Bai, which is known as, in my very bad pronunciation, Farewell to Meng Ha Ran, excuse Chinese pronunciation. So much so that when I went to Wuhan, I insisted to go and see the Yellow Crane Tower in Wuhan. I thought about for 40 years why this poetry made such a big impression upon me. And I couldn't work it out. It just made a big impact, and I couldn't think why. And then I realized it was because there is something very specific about the culture of China, which differs from the other great civilizations of the world. All the other great civilizations of the world, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, are founded on a religion. China is unique in that it is the only great civilization which is based on a system of social values, which is Confucianism, and not on a religion. And this, of course, gives to it a specific way of looking at the world. And this is why it made such a great impact, because it had a different way of looking at the world to European civilization. The next thing was, I read in 1969 Mao Zedong, in particular his essays on practice and on contradiction, which again made a great intellectual impression upon me. In particular, his insistence upon the need to find the main contradiction. And I may say that since 1969, every time I approach a problem, what I am trying to do is to find the main contradiction within the situation. But after 1969, for a period, I didn't follow China, and I began to follow it closely again with the economic reforms. So now we're going from what you might call personal engagement with China to some professional engagement with China. Although